Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at an insurrection, or maybe not, we don't know. Is it only Trump supporters? We're not sure. We're going to be looking at Australia and Albo's voice and a few other things, so here we go. Hey guys, how you going? Okay, let's get into some news here. Ian Miles Chong said there are 3.95 billion women on the planet. Maxim Australia says this man is more attractive than almost all of them and is amongst the top 100 most beautiful women in the world. Do you agree? Oh dear God. Who's Maxim Australia? Never heard of them. John Ruddock, MLC, said Joe Biden just said, I remember the first time I was in Israel. I met with Golda Meir just before the Six-Day War. She said, would you like a photograph? The Six-Day War was in 1967 when Joe Biden was 25 and at college.
You know, I've often said, I remember the first time that I was in Israel with Golda Meir. She was just before the Six-Day War, and she was telling me how terrible everything was, which it was. She kept flipping the maps up and down behind her, and all of a sudden she looked at me and she said, would you like a photograph? And I thought, that's unusual. You know...
Oh, and he thought, she asked if he'd like a photograph, and he said, oh, that's unusual. It was apparently at college at that time. Awakened Outlaw said, that's a damn mask. Isaac's Army said they all have someone in a mask playing them. But Biden, Pelosi, Fetterman, McConnell, all of them. We want answers. Nancy Pelosi, look at this. Look at her eyes. That's not eyeshadow. It's not just eyeshadow. That does look like a mask. Wow, close-up of Pelosi. Who wants that? Seriously. Okay, Ocarina Jones said, is Anthony Albanese our Prime Minister or merely a puppet? Andrew Bolt, Herald Sun, October 18th, 2023. Is Prime Minister Anthony Albanese deaf or just a puppet? He still can't accept Australians shouted no to his agenda of racial division, and I do mean shouted. 61% voted no on Saturday. Yes, Albanese had admitted his Aboriginal-only voice is now dead, but he still won't promise to now scrap another key demand of the Uluru Statement he promised to implement in full. He refused this week to also scrap the Makarrata Commission he's already spent nearly $500,000 on to set up to negotiate a treaty between Aborigines and the rest of us, to argue over sovereignty and reparations. Isn't that exactly the agenda that Australians revolted against? No to dividing us by race? Yet Albanese told Parliament on Tuesday he cannot think of giving up the Makarrata Commission until he's asked some unnamed Aboriginal activists what to do. But alas, they were off on their week of silence, and he'd come back to us about his plans when he'd consulted them after that. Good God, has this man learnt nothing? These faceless leaders pulling his strings seem to be exactly the same people who urged Albanese not to compromise on their radical model of the voice, even though their legal advisers warned voters would never buy it. Now he's waiting for these race mongers to give him his next orders. Wake up, man, you're the Prime Minister, not a puppet. You give orders, don't take them, and certainly not from an unelected bunch of activists whose names are kept secret from the rest of us. This is not leadership, it's certainly not democracy, but Albanese seems to let them write his lines without him checking if they're true or in the public interest. There's nothing to fear, he assured Parliament. Makarrata is simply a Yolngu word for coming together after a struggle. No, not literally. Merikiyakawai Ganamba Stubbs, principal of Arnhem Land's Yirrkala School, says Makarrata literally means a spear penetrating usually the thigh of a person who's done wrong, so that they cannot hunt anymore. they cannot walk properly, that they cannot run properly, to maim them, to settle them down. That actually seems the true agenda of Albanese's Makarrata, to maim our pride and our past and our present, and punish non-Aboriginals for the alleged sins of their race so they cannot walk properly. But there's something else just as dangerous that Albanese is considering after his humiliation, like censorship. That's because he and fellow travelling journalists can't accept Australians were smart enough to reject the voice. They'd rather believe Australians are so stupid that they got all confused by misinformation. Channel 10's Waleed Ali, what's his name? Waleed Ali, for instance, declared if you had high levels of tertiary education, bachelor or post, you were at the very top end of the yes vote. But people with the lowest levels of socio-education struggled with this idea that's quite abstract and complicated, responding instead with instinct and voting no. Instinct's not a bad thing, actually, you know. Actually, a plan to divide us by race isn't abstract or complicated. But the ABC's Patricia Karvelas, a Voice supporter, ran the same smug line. Seats which voted yes was where you find educated people who know. If you've got a bachelor's degree, chances are you know something about government, our structures. You take an interest in the kind of way things happen. But the uneducated vote no. Oh, really? Actually, the vote map tells an alternative story. The yes vote was strongest in rich urban areas with very few poor Aborigines. Sydney's North Shore, for instance, and Canberra. The no vote was strong where there were many poor Aboriginals, such as the Northern Territory, where voters could see the problems and work out if the voice would really fix them. Or consider this, people on the outer geographically and financially voted no because they didn't want to slip further down the queue for help just because they're of the wrong race. But this dickhead's theory that Australians voted against the voice because they were tricked by misinformation is so sweet to Albanese that he's toying now with censorship. Independent MP Zali Steggall on Tuesday asked him to pass laws. It's going the wrong way. To protect voters from deceptive TV ads, and Albanese said he certainly understood her concern about misinformation. And what luck, Albanese already has a bill to give his Australian Communications and Media Authority the power to ban internet posts it considers misinformation. We sure know that the Prime Minister calls misinformation everything that made stupid Australians vote no, this time. Number 1, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese must wake up and be a leader, not a puppet, picture David Beach. Number 2, Channel 10's Waleed Ali, for instance, declared if you had high levels of tertiary education, bachelor or post, you were at the very top end of the yes vote, when it was actually the other way round. Well, no, it wasn't the other way round. A lot of people voted no from the high levels of education, bachelor or post, down to the very poor people. 3, Albanese and he and fellow travelling journalists can't accept that Australians were smart to reject the voice. Yeah, these half-wits. That's Waleed Ali, whatever his name is. There you go. James Wood said about Biden, his cognitive abilities are crippled beyond dispute, and to belittle that is unfair. However, before his dementia was palpable, he was a horrible human being and a crooked, worthless political hack. That ugly person is still under there somewhere, and he's at the helm of the most powerful nation on earth. We are minutes from the end on the doomsday clock with this soulless fool in charge. He has got to go. Literally, the fate of mankind is at stake. And they're just talking about Biden.
You know, years ago I asked the Secretary of State when he and I were working in the Senate to write something for him, and he said, he wrote a line that I think is appropriate. He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it, I'll wait later. Taking too much time. You know,
yeah, he probably couldn't remember, I'd say. Oh dear, I wonder who's playing Biden. Brian Cates, political columnist and pundit, said they've been pretty good up until now, making sure he never spends too long in a hot room so the mask will start coming off his chin. Here the mask is starting to come loose. It is visible and you can see the bulging in the chin area. He's trying to cover it up. Look at it, look at it. His mask is slipping.
Virtually every mass shooting, every circumstance where a large number of people have been victimized and lost.
Who's this guy over here? He looks familiar. You can tell me in the comments, guys. But yeah, his it looks like his mask is falling off. Look at it. Wonder what happens later on. Oh, yeah, look at that. Melting, melting. The Wicked Witch of the West. Teresa said this petition's spreading like wildfire. You know what to do. In a time where our nation grapples with skyrocketing cost of living, consecutive interest rate hikes and fuel prices averaging at $2 per litre, $2 plus, the Albanese government spent a staggering $400 million of your taxpayer money on the voice referendum. They wasted your money on a divisive referendum which was resoundingly rejected by a vast majority of Australians. Demand transparency and accountability. Sign here. So it's from Pepe Down Under. Demand an audit into the dodgy and divisive referendum. Otherwise, I would honestly start ringing and emailing your local politicians, asking them. Vincent Kennedy said because he knows that time when Denzel Washington turned down Jay-Z's greetings. Oh, he's throwing his hand away there. Hang on. Let me just make this bigger so we can all see it properly. Okay. I might have to turn the music down. But look, he's actually pushing him away and pushing his hand away. Isn't that interesting? Denzel knows. Megan said when a 50-year-old established Australian company who supplies Coles, Woolworths and IGA, that's our supermarkets, with their full range of products, goes under, you know our economy has been destroyed. This is what the capitalist-hating, leftist freeloading sea hunts did. You will know all those D-heads who still complain about Jeff Kennett privatising Victoria. They wished for this, the miserable pricks. Aussie dessert icon Sarah Lee enters voluntary administration after more than 50 years. Shame. Sarah Lee makes beautiful desserts. Well, sometimes. You can make better ones at home, to be honest, you can, but, like, they were, if you had to just grab something for dessert, they were pretty good. Rosita Diaz said so many people are disappointed and disgusted with Albo MP, our Prime Minister. During and after the Voice to People referendum, the white voters and "you're done" comments in Parliament appear to have been the last straw. I would like to advise caution with Albanese because he's a seasoned communist whom is now a wounded animal. He is doubly dangerous now, So Australia be extremely careful of Albanese. He will throw people under the bus. He will act like the great guy in front of the media. The media will love him. He will use anything and anyone to advance himself. He will play the victim. The tears will flow easily. He will blame the Australian voter to divide us, and he will push every distraction at his disposal. Be aware, Australia. Be very aware, Australia. I agree. He's like a rat that's cornered. Dr. Russell McGregor said white hats are showing you something again. And this guy has a black eye, I think. It looks like a black eye. He's just peeking out from behind that door. Kate says it's blatantly clear that if you're not the right Indigenous voice, you will not be listened to by Labor. Twice in the Senate yesterday, Penny Wong was asked why would Labor not support Jacinta Price's motion, that being for a Royal Commission into Indigenous child abuse this type, and an audit to identify where the money is being spent, the results, and where it's being wasted. 3 times Wong responded, I again go back to the point you made about why we don't do what Senator Jacinta Price demands. It's because the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community is broader than a single member of this parliament. They got 11 people in the parliament for Aboriginals. Why can't they do anything? No, Senator Price didn't demand, she called for. So the demand that she says, she didn't demand it, she called for it. An Indigenous woman, a member of Parliament, the Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians. In fact, it's 2 Indigenous women because Kerry Ann Little also supports the motion, but they're the wrong voices. Not the ones the government wants to hear from. Well, to be honest, the only voices that the Labor want to listen to are unknown, unnamed activists who aren't Aboriginal, I bet you. Fox Knight said, breaking, Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee threatens Trump supporters, we're going to pay you back so effing hard for all this Are you shaking your boots now? No. Has been. I thought he was sober now. That's what drugs thought too. He's a joke. He's still alive, apparently. Tommy Lee is like 75 pounds when he's drunk and soaking wet. I'm shaking. Someone said he's on crack. Oh, pay us back for what? We've been getting screwed. He's not playing with the full deck. He's talking through drugs. It's the hepatitis and herpes meds talking. Okay, so that's what this guy reckons. I never liked Motley Crue. So there you go, I don't know. President Trump 4, orange and 5 oranges, said deport all terrorists in Congress and all converts. Trump plan to keep jihadists and their sympathisers out of America is to reinstate and expand Trump travel ban on entry from terror-plagued countries, territories and places, re-implement a full suspension of State Department refugee resettlement, implement strong ideological screening for all immigrants to the United States. Sympathy for jihadists, Hamas or Hamas ideology will be automatically disqualifying. Aggressively deport resident aliens with jihadist sympathies. Revoke the student visas of radical anti-American and anti-Semitic foreigners at colleges and universities. Proactively send ICE to pro-jihadist demonstrations to enforce our immigration laws and remove the violators from our country. Continue and expand denaturalisation of criminals, terrorists and immigration cheats. Invoke the Alien Enemies Act to accelerate domestic deportations. So there's that. And there was an insurrection yesterday, at the Capitol. Geordie Trump said, how were they allowed so close? Why wasn't she protected? And how the hell isn't this an insurrection?
These people are not for peace. You can tell it's the same kind of movement that started with BLM, and it'll be the same kind of violent movement later on. They don't want peace.
So Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live! Murderers go home! Murderers go home! Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live! Let Gaza live! End the genocide! End the genocide! End the genocide! End the genocide instead of funding it! Blood is on your hands! Gaza's blood is on your hands! Gaza's blood is on your hands! Gaza's blood is on your hands! Let Gaza live!
These people are...
there you go. So I'm assuming that Trump wants to send the type of guy that was yelling behind her back. Edwin said Palestinian supporters are inside the Capitol building. The hypocrisy of their reaction when Trump supporters were literally invited in and a woman was shot dead by staff and many jailed for insane amounts of time. Yet they're allowed in there. And I think it was Ilhan Omar was speaking out the front. An angry mob is blocking the streets outside the US Capitol. If Trump supporters acted like this, the New York Times and Democrat lawmakers would be screaming insurrection. Sad times in the USA. What's this guy yelling?
Trump has literally shut down the street. Are you
take a look. Hold up. Law enforcement is literally mobilizing.
Okay, so there you go. They're inside, they're outside, they're everywhere. Captain Bacteria said just in. Captain Bacteria. The United States Capitol has been taken over inside and outside by pro-Palestine protesters as Representative Rashida Tlaib spoke with a crowd nearby. Why isn't she being held to account? Why isn't she being arrested? Impeached? Whatever. Are we only allowed to call people like this insurrections when they are Donald Trump supporters? Police are now making arrests inside the Capitol. Sad day for democracy, but it's a republic. So there you go. Yeah, only when Trump supporters do it. Otherwise, you know, they're allowed to get away with it. Okay. Who are they tagging in this thing? Palestine General. Oh no, I'm not going to like that one. But there you go. Laura Loomis said same, only voting Donald Trump, and then I hope to see the party collapse. They do more harm than good. They can't even unite behind Donald Trump and can't even elect a speaker. The most useless people on this planet are House Republicans. These people don't even work. In response to Cat Turd, who said, I'm a lifetime Republican and I'm absolutely done with the Republican Party. You? Yeah, because it's full of rhinos. Okay, Lord of the Pepe said, I've said it time and again. Time and time again. Doesn't matter how you got to this point. Doesn't matter if it was Q, 9/11, Trump, something else. The most important thing is that you're here and you're fighting to fix what is wrong. While I'm a proud Anon, and it's where I come from in my journey, this message from the General is on point. Flynn is 100% right. It's important now more than ever that you get involved locally. You want change? It's time. We are the change. I spoke earlier about how hard it is to feed my family because of inflation and taxation of this great nation. Imagine getting involved locally and building a support system so another family doesn't go hungry again. Imagine partnering with lawmakers to fix taxes and help the community independent of corruption. Local action equals national impact. Get involved. And I've said this for a long time. This might be a movie we're watching, but it is an interactive one. You have to stand up. General Mike Flynn said, here's my take on Q. I believe it's a major psyop, and from what I can tell, it has done a major disservice. What I see are a bunch of people sitting and waiting for something to happen instead of doing what I've been calling for quite some time, local action. And look, I agree partly with what he's saying, except as I said in the beginning, I have said this is an interactive thing. You need to stand up. The nonsense about Trump is still the president, the military is coming to rescue is just that nonsense. I wasn't belittling Dave, he's a big boy. I was being brutally honest, like it or not, believe it or not. Rome is burning, Nero, the bucket brigade is getting low on water, and like it or not, I don't. We have a person in the White House that is there following a constitutional process. Note, I didn't say fair election, which I don't believe occurred. Lastly, I so respect your smart statement, and most definitely I appreciate your support as well as Dave's. I'm a big fan of X22. I also appreciate the support by many of the digital soldiers who did and do support me. Thank you will never be enough. However, I want us to face the reality for what it is and staring us in the face currently, and it is ugly, but never give up, and trust me, there will always be silver linings. We just have to find them and exploit them as soon and for as long as possible. God bless. Yeah, exactly. Regardless of what they said or didn't say, the people have a job to do. I have always said this is interactive. Okay, a lot of people sent me this heated exchange between General Flynn and Dave from X22 and asked my opinion. I don't see anyone else talking about this, so I will. First, General Flynn is 100% correct. Our military abides by the US Constitution. Our military acts on the orders of the duly elected. To ask our military to do anything else outside of the Constitution, we might as well live in a banana republic. I agree 100%, we don't want that. However, Joe Biden and many others were maybe not duly elected. If all legal and judicial avenues are exhausted and the process to duly elect said individuals is compromised and our constitution's being constantly eroded and disregarded, is that not a fair question to ask? I personally did not like how Flynn responded to Dave. I felt it was an unnecessary reaction. In my opinion, General Flynn's message is spot on, but would be highly more effective if he didn't belittle and call people dummies, especially anons who've been there supporting him since day one. The reality is Flynn will never admit to the legitimacy of Q or what is said. I would never expect him to. You shouldn't either. He's a public figure, whom I think may serve in Trump's administration. Here's the rub. We don't need him to. I know what Q means to me because I've read the drops and formulated my opinion about it. It changed my perspective on life forever, and I'm not the only one. I've seen what kinds of people Q has woken up and the domino effect it's had on the world. If it was intended to be a bad psyop, it wasn't a very successful one because they effectively woke up and activated millions of people to become voices, to take action, to get involved and battle the mainstream mockingbird apparatus narrative. In a nutshell, I agree with and support Flynn on what he's trying to say, but friendly fire like this is unwarranted and doesn't do anyone any good. There are more effective ways to talk about this subject without demeaning some of the most loyal people there are to the truth, digital soldiers. With that said, those are my thoughts, and I will respect and appreciate his service to the country. Now, I didn't see that the episode he's talking about of X22, but I will watch it. But look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You might be watching a movie, but it's an interactive one. You have to stand up and say something. Joe Rambo said probably just a coincidence that Trump himself retruthed Watch 2222 of himself saying plus plus plus. Who says that? With the Q drop showing plus 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 in it. Nothing is random. Everything has meaning. In case you haven't heard, Trump is Q plus. Nothing is random. Everything has meaning. And either way, it did wake a lot of people up. So there we go. Yep, so... Oh, I've got to go back again. And again. Okay, there we go. Alina Haber said, hey, Jimmy Kimmel Live, first you started off doing blackface, now you've gone full-blown fake news. Maybe that's why your ratings are in the toilet. There was no box to check. Stop trying to play lawyer, read up. Okay. What happened was during Trump's court case, he's not getting a jury. Okay, now some people are trying to say he forgot to check a box. This is the judge, I believe, has said he's not allowed one. Okay, in a real layman's terms, in as simple as I can get it, I do believe that he's made it so that Trump cannot have a jury. And if you're confused at all, just go and watch Robert Gouveia on YouTube, and he was talking about it. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave it there for today, and I should be back hopefully in the morning with a live stream. That is probably less than 12 hours away. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, guys.